This happened about a year ago, and for a long time I didn't think I'd ever say it out loud. Not because I was ashamed, but because I needed to understand it myself first. I needed to make peace with how quietly a 10-year marriage can collapse, without screaming, without cheating caught in a hotel room, without a single dramatic explosion. Just one sentence. It was a random Tuesday evening, 3 weeks before our 10th wedding anniversary. We were sitting at our kitchen table eating reheated Chinese takeout from white cardboard boxes, the kind of dinner you eat when you're tired but comfortable. My husband, Daniel, twirled noodles around his fork and told me, casually, almost lazily, that our anniversary would need to be moved. Not discussed, not negotiated, moved, like a dentist appointment. I remember the exact moment my chest tightened, though my face didn't change. I had been planning that anniversary since January. 6 months earlier, I'd somehow secured a reservation at the Pinnacle Room in downtown Portland, one of the hardest tables to get in the city. I'd booked a coastal weekend getaway in winter, the ocean view room he always said was unnecessary but nice. I'd bought concert tickets to his favorite band the second they went on sale, all of it. And now all of it had to shift because his wine club friends had planned a weekend tour through wine country. The deposits are already down, he said, scrolling his phone. We can celebrate the following weekend. It's just a date on a calendar, right? I set my chopsticks down slowly, giving myself time to breathe. It's our 10th anniversary, I said. And we'll have many more, he replied, not looking up. His phone buzzed. He smiled at the screen. Validation arriving in neat little vibrations. That's when I really looked at him. The man across from me, dismissive, distracted, already emotionally elsewhere, was not the man I married 10 years earlier. That man would have cared. That man would have noticed the effort. That man would never have chosen wine tasting with people he'd known for 8 weeks over a decade of partnership. You're right, I said calmly. One weekend won't matter. Relief washed over his face. He leaned across the table, kissed my cheek, and went right back to texting his friends. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't have known in that moment, was that while he was planning a weekend in wine country, I had already started planning something else, something permanent. And unlike him, I wasn't thinking just one weekend ahead. I was 35 years old when everything finally made sense. From the outside, my life looked steady. Comfortable, even enviable. I worked as a senior project manager for a mid-sized tech firm in Portland, the kind of job that didn't make headlines but paid well enough to buy stability. I liked structure, lists, plans. I liked knowing where things were headed. Daniel used to say that was what grounded him, that I was the calm center in his chaos. We met in our mid-20s at a friend's birthday party. Nothing cinematic. No sparks flying across the room, just an easy conversation that stretched longer than either of us expected. He was charming in a low-effort way, quick with jokes, warm without trying too hard. When he asked for my number, it felt natural, safe. We dated for 3 years before getting married. Those years were good. Not perfect, but real. We built routines together. Sunday grocery runs, late-night talks on the couch, arguments that ended in compromise instead of silence. When he proposed, it wasn't flashy, just the two of us on a rainy weekend trip, his hands shaking slightly as he held out the ring. I said yes without hesitation. The first 5 years of marriage felt like teamwork. We both worked full-time. We split responsibilities naturally, without scorekeeping. When one of us struggled, the other compensated. That balance mattered to me. Partnership mattered. Daniel wasn't a bad husband, not in the obvious ways. He never yelled, never disappeared overnight, never raised a hand. But over time, something shifted. Slowly enough that I kept adjusting instead of questioning. He became more restless, more susceptible to outside voices. He started talking about feeling stuck, even though nothing in our lives had objectively changed. Same jobs, same house, same marriage. I assumed it was a phase, mid-30s anxiety, Everyone has it. Then came the Wine Wednesday Club. At first, I encouraged it. Daniel had been saying he needed friends outside of work, something social that wasn't just us. When he found the group through a neighborhood Facebook page, it sounded harmless. Monthly wine tastings, learning about different grape varieties, meeting people nearby. I wanted him to have a life that didn't orbit only around me. What I didn't realize was how quickly monthly turned into weekly, then into something else entirely. His calendar filled up with events I wasn't part of. Weekend plans appeared without conversation. Nights out stretched later and later. When I asked questions, his tone changed, defensive, irritated, like my concern was an accusation. I told myself I was being paranoid. His family didn't help. His mother had always liked me, but in a conditional way, the kind of approval that depends on how well you play your role. She praised me for being supportive, for not nagging, for letting Daniel find himself. Comments that seemed harmless until they weren't. Men need freedom, she once said casually over dinner. You're good about that. I smiled, swallowed the unease. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to assemble them into something ugly. I believed in us, in the version of Daniel I married, in the idea that loyalty was stronger than influence. By the time our 10th anniversary approached, I still thought we were solid. I didn't know I was already competing, with a group chat, with validation from strangers, with a version of independence that required erasing me. And I definitely didn't know that the conversation at our kitchen table wasn't the beginning of the end. It was simply the first moment I stopped pretending everything was fine. The shift didn't happen overnight. That's the part people rarely understand. There was no single moment where I could point and say, that's when he stopped being my husband. It was a slow erosion, small enough each time that I kept stepping around it instead of stopping it. Wine Wednesday stopped being one night a month. It became every Wednesday. Then Fridays appeared. Then Saturdays. Events popped up on Daniel's calendar, already confirmed, already paid for, already decided. I'd hear about them the same way I heard about a meeting reschedule, after the fact. Why didn't you mention this earlier? I asked one night as he shrugged on a jacket, glancing at his phone. I didn't think it was a big deal, he said. You don't need to be involved in everything. That word, involved, landed strangely. Marriage used to mean shared context. Now it sounded like a boundary I wasn't supposed to cross. His vocabulary changed too. Suddenly, everything was about self-care, boundaries, living authentically. Phrases that sounded rehearsed, borrowed, delivered with confidence but not conviction, like lines memorized rather than felt. Phone habits changed next. Daniel started taking calls outside, even when it was cold. He said the house was too loud, though most nights I was sitting quietly with a book. When his phone buzzed on the counter, he flipped it face down, almost reflexively. He changed his passcode. 9 years of marriage, and we'd never needed that before. When I noticed, he noticed that I noticed. Why are you watching my phone? He snapped once. I wasn't, I said honestly. It was right there. You're tracking me like I'm a teenager. That stung. Not because it was true, but because it wasn't. I wasn't monitoring. I was trying to stay connected. Money was the next fracture. An $800 charge appeared on our joint account labeled Wine Wednesday Activities. When I asked about it, his reaction startled me. Not embarrassment, not explanation, but anger. I'm investing in friendships, he said sharply. Women need community. $800 a month, I asked. Daniel, that's not normal social spending. You spend money on your hobbies, he fired back. My hobbies don't require lying about where I am until midnight. The words slipped out before I could soften them. Silence followed, thick, heavy, final. I'm not lying, he said coldly. I'm just not reporting to you like a child. I'm an adult woman. I don't need permission. That phrase, like a child, echoed long after he walked away. It didn't sound like him. It sounded coached, scripted. It sounded like Diana. Daniel talked about her often. The group's unofficial leader. Late 30s, divorced twice, though he called them escapes from toxic situations. Diana had a way of reframing everything. Control became concern. Accountability became oppression. Commitment became obligation. Then there was Jessica, who was seeing a coworker. When I asked if the man was single, Daniel bristled. It's not our place to judge other people's relationships. Brittany was engaged for the third time. According to Daniel, her exes couldn't handle her independence. I wondered why independence always seemed to come paired with broken engagements. Rachel's husband was deployed overseas. Daniel talked about how lonely she was. What he didn't linger on was how often she spent those lonely nights at bars, posting photos that invited attention from men who were very much not deployed. These were the voices shaping my husband. Individually, each change was explainable. Together, they formed a pattern I could no longer ignore. I started paying closer attention, really paying attention. And once I did, I realized I wasn't just losing time with Daniel, I was losing him to an ideology that framed marriage as something to outgrow. The moment everything stopped being hypothetical came quietly. No shouting, no slam doors, just a glowing screen and a sentence that felt like a verdict. It was a Thursday night. Daniel had gone to shower, and for once, his phone was still unlocked on the nightstand. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't hunting. I was reaching for my book when the screen lit up. A message preview appeared. Diana, did he give you grief? Men hate when we have their own lives. Stay strong, sister. My fingers froze midair. I stared at the screen longer than I want to admit. My heart beat loud in my ears. Grief. That's what asking about my husband's whereabouts had become. An offense. A threat. I picked up the phone. I told myself I'd put it down after one glance. I didn't. The messages weren't explicit. That was almost worse. They were affirmations, encouragements, subtle reinforcements of a narrative where I was the problem and Daniel was the victim of marital suffocation. When he came back from the shower, I placed the phone exactly where I found it and pretended to read. I didn't sleep that night. The next afternoon, Daniel left his tablet open on the coffee table while he took a call outside. He thought I was in my home office. I wasn't. The Wine Wednesday private Facebook group was still logged in. I sat down, scrolled, and felt my stomach drop. Diana's posts read like a manifesto. Train your partner to respect boundaries. Questioning your whereabouts is control, not care. Your independence is non-negotiable. The comments beneath each post were worse. Jessica bragged openly about her affair, screenshots included. Laughing emojis followed. He makes me feel alive again. My boyfriend just doesn't get me anymore. Someone asked if the man was married. His marriage isn't my responsibility, Jessica replied. Brittany wrote long rants about her ex-fiancés, each framed as insecure men threatened by her freedom. Read closely, and a different picture emerged. Men exhausted by disrespect, by blurred boundaries, by being replaced emotionally before they were replaced physically. Rachel posted photos at 2 a.m. Tight dresses, bar lighting, strangers' hands visible in the frame. Lonely night. Not anymore. The comments cheered her on. You deserve this. Deployment shouldn't dim your light. Then I saw it. A post from a week before Daniel mentioned moving our anniversary. Diana, any of you ladies have anniversaries or birthdays coming up? Planning something epic in wine country that weekend. Girl time over obligation time. Who's in? 5 comments. Daniel was the third. Count me in. My 10th anniversary is that weekend, but this sounds way more fun. She'll understand. I read it 3 times. My 10th anniversary. Reduced to an obstacle. I took screenshots of everything. Posts, comments, timestamps. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't accidental neglect. It was deliberate conditioning. When Daniel brought up rescheduling again a week later, I was ready. We were sitting in the living room. So, he said carefully, I need to talk about our anniversary. I'm listening. The wine club planned this amazing tour. Same weekend. You want to cancel our plans? Reschedule, he corrected. We can go the next weekend. The reservation took 6 months. Then we'll go somewhere else. It's not about the place. What's it about then? I held his gaze. It's about you being flexible. about supporting what makes me happy. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. Your happiness matters. I want you to do exactly what makes you happy. He blinked. Really? Don't hold back. Relief flooded his face. Thank you for understanding, he said. I promise we'll make it up. I'm sure it'll be memorable, I replied. And it would be, just not in the way he imagined. Because that night, after he fell asleep, I opened my laptop and searched for a divorce attorney. Not in anger, in clarity. Clarity doesn't arrive like lightning. It settles in, quiet, heavy, unavoidable. The night I searched for a divorce attorney, I didn't cry. That surprised me. I'd imagined devastation would come first. Sobbing, denial, panic. Instead, what I felt was a strange stillness, like my body had finally stopped bracing for impact. I closed the laptop without booking anything. I lay in bed beside Daniel, listening to his breathing even and untroubled, and asked myself the questions I'd been avoiding for months. When did I start feeling like an inconvenience in my own marriage? When did partnership turn into permission? How long have I been shrinking to make space for his growth? I replayed conversations in my head, moments I'd dismissed as stress or miscommunication. The eye rolls, the sighs, the way he'd glance at his phone mid-sentence when I spoke, the subtle impatience whenever I asked for reassurance. I wasn't blindsided. I'd been trained, slowly, carefully, not to object. The next morning, Daniel kissed my forehead on his way out the door, already talking about packing for wine country. I smiled back, poured my coffee, and watched him leave, like I always did. Except this time, I didn't feel left behind. I felt detached. That afternoon, I called Mitchell and Partners downtown. My voice didn't shake. I'd like to speak with an attorney about divorce proceedings. There was a pause. Professional. Neutral. How soon would you like an appointment? Friday, I said. My 10th wedding anniversary. Another pause. Friday at 3, the receptionist replied. Please bring any documentation you have. Documentation. I almost laughed. By Tuesday, I opened a personal checking account at a different bank, one Daniel had never used. I transferred exactly half of our joint savings, $43,000. I documented everything, dates, amounts, paper trails. I called my accountant to confirm. You're within your rights, he said. Washington is a community property state. 50-50 is standard. You're not hiding money. You're protecting it. Protecting myself. That word mattered. Wednesday, I contacted a realtor friend to assess our house value. Is everything okay? She asked gently. No, I said honestly, but it will be. I started cataloging our life, photographed jewelry, furniture, electronics, items purchased during the marriage. I created a spreadsheet with obsessive precision, date of purchase, original cost, estimated value. It wasn't vindictive, it was necessary. I wasn't preparing to punish Daniel. I was preparing to leave cleanly. Thursday evening, he came home buzzing with excitement. New clothes hung in garment bags. New luggage sat by the door. His nails were done. He showed me the itinerary like a teenager before prom. Friday night, Willow Creek Resort, he said. 3 wineries Saturday, fancy dinner, spa Sunday. Sounds expensive, I observed. $850 per person, he replied, almost proudly. But we all agreed we deserve it. We. Not us, I nodded. You'll have an unforgettable weekend. I really will, he said, smiling. The same smile I fell in love with years ago. Except now, it was directed at leaving me behind. You'll be okay here? He asked. I know it's our anniversary. I'll be more than okay, I said. Something in my tone made him pause. You're really not mad? Why would I be? I asked. You're doing exactly what you want. He accepted that answer because he needed to. That night, as he packed, humming softly, I sat on the edge of the bed and watched, memorized the moment. The last time I would watch my husband prepare to leave me, thinking it was temporary. It wasn't anger that hardened me. It was resolve. And by the time Friday morning arrived, our actual anniversary, I wasn't mourning what I was losing. I was steady in what I was choosing. Friday morning arrived with an eerie calm. 10 years to the day since Daniel and I stood in front of our families and promised forever. No balloons, no cards, no acknowledgement beyond a distracted morning as he zipped his suitcase. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching him pack, committing the image to memory. The way he checked his phone between folding shirts, the faint smile playing on his lips. The excitement he wasn't bothering to hide anymore. "You sure you're not upset?" he asked, catching my reflection in the mirror. "Why would I be?" I replied. "You're doing what you want." "When I get back," he said lightly, "we'll plan something really special." "Something definitely will be special," I said. At 2:00, Diana pulled up in a rented luxury SUV. Laughter spilled out the windows before the doors even opened. The other women were already inside, Jessica, Brittany, and Rachel, singing along to music I couldn't hear. Daniel kissed me at the door. "Love you. See you Sunday night." Diana leaned out the window grinning. "Don't worry. We'll take good care of him." "I'm counting on it," I said. I watched the SUV disappear down the street, then checked my watch. Attorney appointment in 90 minutes. James Miller's office overlooked the river. He reviewed my documentation with quiet focus, flipping through pages, screenshots, timelines. "This is exceptionally thorough," he said finally. I showed him the Facebook post, Daniel's comment about our 10th anniversary being less important than wine tasting. I watched his eyebrows lift slightly. "In a no-fault state, intent isn't the issue," he said. "But public documentation establishes a clear pattern of abandonment of marital obligations." We discussed timelines, costs, contingencies. "If he contests, this could get expensive." "He won't," I said calmly. "He's too busy explaining to everyone why this is somehow my fault." By 5:30, the paperwork was drafted. Filing scheduled for Monday. "Are you certain about the timing?" James asked gently. "This is your anniversary." "He already decided the date doesn't matter," I replied. "I'm just agreeing." I drove. At 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Just checked into the hotel. This place is gorgeous. An anniversary weekend. More like girlfriend's weekend." I screenshot it and forwarded it to James. Then I started packing. I boxed Daniel's belongings neatly. Clothes, books, personal items, stacking them in the garage. By 9:15, another text arrived. "Diana just ordered us all champagne. Having so much fun already. Enjoy every moment," I replied. At 10:30, another story appeared. They were drunk now, Diana's arm draped over Daniel's shoulders, to new traditions and leaving old obligations behind. I removed our wedding photo from the mantle, placed it carefully in a box. Then I slid my wedding ring off my finger. I placed it in an envelope with a note. "You won't need this anymore." Saturday morning began with more posts. At 11 a.m., a group photo from the first winery. Matching Wine Wednesday shirts. 10 years married and finally doing what I want. The comments poured in. "About time." "Living your best life." "This is what freedom looks like." I called a moving company. Reserved a storage unit. By 2:30 p.m., a video appeared. Daniel dancing, wine glass sloshing dangerously. "Tell everyone what you're celebrating," Diana prompted. "Freedom," Daniel laughed. "Freedom from expectations." I downloaded the video, sent it to James. Then I removed Daniel's name from our joint credit cards, changed streaming passwords, updated my emergency contacts. At 5 p.m., a photo appeared from the third winery. Daniel's left hand was visible. No wedding ring. "Left the ball and chain at home. LOL. JK. Or am I?" His aunt commented, "Where's your ring, honey?" "Taking a break from expectations," Daniel replied. That was when I called my brother. "Guest room still available?" "Always," he said. "You okay?" "Better than I've been in months." Saturday night brought photos from the fancy dinner. Bottles everywhere. Best anniversary dinner ever. Who says you need a spouse to celebrate love? These queens are all I need. At 8:30, my phone rang. "Daniel," I answered. "Hey." His voice was thick with alcohol. "Just checking in. You having fun?" "So much fun," he said. "You should see this place." "Maybe next year," I replied. "You're not mad, right? You sound weird. "I'm not mad," I said. "I'm clear." "Clear about what?" "About what I need to do." "Love you," he said. "Goodbye, Daniel." I hung up. At 9:15, another story appeared. More people were visible now. A woman sat close to Daniel, an arm draped comfortably over his shoulders. The universe provides. By 11:30, a photo appeared of Daniel leaning into that woman, smiling. Sometimes the best nights are unexpected. I turned off my phone, loaded the last box into my car, left my house key on the kitchen counter. On the table, I placed the letter, the ring, and copies of everything I'd documented. On top, a single line: "Read everything. Then call your attorney." I closed the door, and I drove away. Sunday morning arrived without ceremony. No alarm, no urgency, just a quiet house that no longer felt like mine, and a phone I deliberately left face down on the kitchen counter. I already knew what it would contain: confusion, anger, bargaining, the predictable stages of someone who never thought consequences would actually arrive. I drove to my brother's place before sunrise. He didn't ask questions when I showed up with boxes and a suitcase. He just opened the door, stepped aside, and poured coffee once I sat down. That kindness, the absence of interrogation, nearly broke me. For the first time since Friday, the weight hit. Not regret, not doubt. Grief. I stared at the steam rising from the mug in my hands and felt the strangest ache. Not for Daniel as he was now, but for the version of us I had protected long past its expiration date. The quiet compromises, the swallowed disappointments, the way I'd slowly adjusted my expectations to match his shrinking investment. I hadn't lost him all at once. I'd lost him inch by inch. Late morning, I finally turned my phone over. 35 missed calls. The voicemails stacked like falling dominoes. The first was confused. The next, angry. Then frantic. The last one was just sobbing. No words, only breath breaking apart. Text flooded in. "This is insane. You can't be serious. Call me right now. You're overreacting. It was just a weekend. Please answer me. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't do this. I love you." I didn't respond. At 1:15 p.m., Daniel called my brother. He answered on speaker. "Where is she?" Daniel demanded. "I need to talk to her." "She doesn't want to talk to you." "This is crazy," Daniel said. "It was just a trip." "On your 10th anniversary," my brother replied evenly. "Without your wedding ring. With another man's arm around you." A pause. How did she see that? "That's the wrong question," my brother said. "The right one is why you thought she wouldn't." "That was innocent," Daniel insisted. "We were just having fun." "Maybe you should have had fun with your spouse." "Please," Daniel said, voice cracking. "Just let me talk to her. She'll hear from your attorney tomorrow." The line went dead. 30 minutes later, Diana called. I didn't answer. Then Jessica. Then Brittany. I blocked them all. That afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. Daniel's tablet was still linked to his accounts, still syncing automatically. I opened the Wine Wednesday group chat. The tone had shifted. "I need help," Daniel wrote. "My wife filed for divorce." Silence. Then, Jessica. "What? Why?" Brittany. "Because of this weekend? That's extreme." Rachel. "She can't divorce you for a trip." Daniel. "She has screenshots of everything." A long pause. Then Diana. "Girls, maybe we should take this offline." Daniel. "You said this was normal. You said I deserved this." Diana. "I didn't tell you to take off your ring." Daniel. "You said to leave obligations behind. You toasted to it." Brittany. "Did something happen with that woman at the bar?" Daniel. "No. But there are photos." Rachel. "Listen, this is your marriage. We can't be responsible for your choices." One by one, they left the chat. Diana first. Then Jessica. Then Brittany. Then Rachel. Daniel was alone in the group he'd chosen over me. Monday morning at 9 a.m., a process server arrived at the house. Daniel answered in a bathrobe, eyes red, hands shaking. "You've been served." The papers spelled everything out: irreconcilable differences, abandonment of marital obligations, his own social media posts attached as exhibits. He called 3 law firms. Each quoted a $5,000 retainer. One attorney asked quietly, "Were these posts accurate representations?" "Yes," Daniel admitted, "but I didn't mean it like that." "Intent doesn't matter," the attorney replied. "Documentation does." When he called his parents, the silence on the other end was long. "You did what on your anniversary?" his mother finally asked. His father didn't sugarcoat it. "You chose friends over your spouse and broadcasted it. What did you think would happen?" By the end of the day, Daniel had nowhere left to redirect blame. And that realization was the lowest point. Because even though I knew I'd done the right thing, there was still a moment, late that night, lying awake in my brother's guest room, when the loneliness pressed hard enough to make me question everything. Not because I wanted him back, but because endings, even necessary ones, still hurt. The turning point didn't come with triumph. It came with silence. By Tuesday morning, the noise had burned itself out. No more frantic calls, no more messages spiraling from anger into apology. Daniel had finally reached the end of the script he'd been repeating since Sunday. Shock, denial, pleading, and found nothing left to say. That's when reality arrived. Not dramatically, not cruelly, just plainly. James called me mid-morning. "They won't contest," he said. His attorney confirmed it. I closed my eyes, exhaled slowly. "That was fast." "It usually is when the evidence is this clean," James replied. "You were methodical, calm. That makes all the difference." After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, my brother's kitchen table, and stared at my hands. No ring, no indentation where it used to sit. I flexed my fingers, testing the unfamiliar lightness. For the first time since Friday, I let myself feel something close to relief. Not because Daniel was hurting, but because I wasn't confused anymore. The doubts that had plagued me for months, the "am I too rigid? Am I asking for too much? Am I the problem?" had finally dissolved. The facts were clear. His choices were public, repeated, proud. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a declaration. That afternoon, a text came through from a number I hadn't blocked. "I know you won't answer, but I need you to know something." I didn't respond. I didn't even open it right away. I wasn't avoiding pain. I was choosing timing. When I did read it later, it said, "They're all gone. Diana won't return my calls. The group chat is dead. I don't have anyone." I stared at the words longer than I expected to, not with satisfaction, with clarity. Daniel hadn't lost friends. He'd lost a performance audience, a chorus that only applauded as long as nothing real was at stake. That night, my brother asked gently, "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," I said, and meant it. Not good, not great, but steady. He nodded. "That's strong." I shook my head. "It's honest." Wednesday brought mediation scheduling. Thursday brought paperwork confirmations. Each step felt procedural, almost boring, and that normalcy was grounding. Daniel tried one last time on Thursday evening. He showed up at my brother's house unannounced. I didn't open the door at first. I watched through the window as he stood there, hands shoved into his pockets, shoulders slumped, smaller somehow. "I just need 5 minutes," he called. "Please." Against my better judgment, I stepped outside. He looked terrible. Weight loss, dark circles, a desperation that didn't suit him. "I didn't know it would go this far," he said immediately. "That's the problem," I replied. "You never think past the moment you're being validated." That weekend didn't mean what it looked like. "It meant exactly what it looked like," I said calmly. "Because you made it public." I was confused, he said. I was trying to figure myself out, at my expense. Silence stretched between us. "I'd give anything to take it back," he whispered. "I know," I said, "but wanting to undo a choice isn't the same as not making it." Tears welled in his eyes. "Do you hate me?" I searched myself honestly before answering. "No," I said, "I don't. I just don't trust you, and I don't want to build a life on that." He nodded slowly, like the truth was finally sinking in. "I guess this is it." "Yes," I said, "it is." I watched him walk away without chasing him, without collapsing, without bargaining. Because somewhere between the screenshots and the silence, I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I remembered who I was. And more importantly, I remembered what I deserved. Consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they come as quiet withdrawals. People stepping back, phones going unanswered, invitations never sent. That was how Daniel's world began to collapse. Not in one dramatic moment, but through a series of doors closing at once. Mediation was scheduled 2 weeks after the filing. We met at James's office on a gray Monday morning. Daniel arrived with a court-appointed attorney, legal aid. He qualified. That alone said more than words ever could. He looked smaller than I remembered, like someone who had been carrying a costume that finally slipped off. He couldn't meet my eyes. His attorney reviewed the settlement proposal carefully, flipping pages, nodding. "This is fair," he said quietly to Daniel. "More than fair, given the documentation." Daniel swallowed hard. Is there any way to change this?" The attorney shook his head. "With the evidence attached? You're fortunate she isn't asking for more." I spoke for the first time since sitting down. "I'm not here to punish you," I said evenly. "I just want to leave cleanly." Daniel's shoulders sagged. I know I ruined it." "Yes," I said, "you did." "Can I explain?" "There's nothing left to explain," I replied. "You already explained, publicly, repeatedly." The settlement was straightforward. The house would be sold, proceeds split evenly, savings already divided, no alimony. Each of us kept our own retirement accounts. Furniture divided fairly. Daniel signed with a trembling hand, tears dropping onto the paper. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I know," I said. "You are now." Outside the office, his parents didn't offer comfort the way he'd hoped. "You embarrassed yourself," his father told him bluntly later, according to what Daniel would admit weeks afterward. "And you disrespected your marriage. Actions have outcomes." His mother cried, not for the divorce, but for the optics, the public nature of it all, the screenshots, the posts. Within days, the Wine Wednesday group unraveled completely. Jessica's affair surfaced when her coworker's spouse found the messages. HR got involved. She was fired. Rachel's husband returned from deployment earlier than expected. He saw the posts, filed for separation. The community didn't rally around her the way she'd imagined. Diana's carefully curated image fractured when a married man she'd been seeing was exposed. This time, she wasn't the victim in the story she told. She was the other woman. The fallout was immediate. Friends disappeared. Invitations dried up. Brittany announced yet another engagement. The comments were brutal. Patterns once visible are hard to ignore. Daniel watched all of this happen from the sidelines, no longer protected by the group narrative that had insulated him from accountability. 2 weeks later, we stood in King County Family Court. The judge reviewed the uncontested paperwork with practiced efficiency. "Any final statements?" Daniel shook his head. I remained silent. Divorce granted. Marriage dissolved. The gavel struck. 10 years ended in under 3 minutes. In the parking lot, Daniel caught up to me. "Please," he said. "Just one conversation." "We've had all of them," I replied. "They're gone," he said desperately. "All of them. I'm alone." "You chose to be," I said gently. "I didn't choose this outcome." "You chose the actions," I corrected. "Outcomes follow." He looked at me like he wanted to argue, then realized there was nowhere left to stand. "What am I supposed to do now?" he asked. "Whatever you want," I said. That was always the goal, wasn't it? I walked away without anger, without triumph, just certainty, because the truth didn't need me to shout. It had already done its work. 3 months later, my life was quiet in a way it had never been before. Not empty, intentional. I moved into a smaller apartment downtown. Less space, better light. Furniture I chose because I liked it, not because it fit a shared compromise. On Friday evenings, I cooked for myself, without rushing, without checking the clock, without wondering when someone else would come home. I slept better. One night, as I was making dinner, my phone rang. "Coffee tomorrow?" a man asked. A friend of a friend, low pressure, no expectations. I said yes, not because I needed something new, but because I finally felt open again. Out of curiosity, I checked social media one last time. Diana's profile was private. Jessica posted vague inspirational quotes about rebirth and betrayal. No job, no context. Brittany's engagement posts already carried a familiar strain. Rachel was posting about her custody battle, asking for donations to cover legal fees. Daniel's page was almost empty. One photo posted weeks earlier, a small apartment in a cheaper part of town. Starting over, learning who I am without the noise. Some lessons cost more than others. Comments were disabled. I closed the app and looked at the calendar on my fridge. That day was circled. It would have been our 11th anniversary. Instead, it marked something else. The anniversary of the day I chose self-respect over shrinking myself to preserve a relationship that no longer existed. I didn't hate Daniel. I didn't wish him pain. But I refused to carry the consequences of choices I didn't make. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Love doesn't require you to compete for relevance. Commitment doesn't ask you to disappear quietly. And freedom that demands the destruction of someone else isn't freedom at all. The doorbell rang. My date had arrived. I opened the door, stepped forward, and closed it behind me. I didn't look back, because some endings aren't failures. They're corrections.